Works.
You just keep hitting me in the shoulders.
You know, maybe I'll. Hey. Feel free to have a seat. Thank you. Okay. April, are you still on then?
Yes, I am. I just turned the video off of my camera.
Okay. I don't see anyone. Do you mind if I sit here then?
Yeah, you can sit there. That's
Okay.
totally fine. I'm double recording there. I'm recording on the Google and I'm also recording.
I don't see anyone else on.
LaNae said that she is going to try to join digitally and Brent. See what happens.
Jim, how are you? Good. Good to see you.
Are we ready to roll, or do you want to wait a little bit?
I think we're ready. We don't have anybody online yet that was going to join us, but I think that's okay. Maybe we'll hold off on the minutes till the end.
See if we get some more interviews.
Yeah. I think Brent Tobler was going to join us electronically, but I don't see him on there yet. So we only have 3.
Yeah.
But we can forego the minutes. Oh, wait, there we go. There's Brent. Brent, can you hear me?
You just joined?
Yeah. Brent, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now? Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum now. We have 5. Right. So great. All right, Jim. 6. If you'd like 7, we have a full quorum. You can come up here to the table. We'll get you a chair. Can you introduce everybody that you have this?
Yes.
I assume you would.
Yes.
But Jim's gonna go.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Then I'd like to welcome everybody. Do we need these some introductions, Chris?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be best.
All right.
We'll start with yourself.
All right. I'm Jim Michaelis, Chair of the Committees.
I'm Wade Fausett. I'm an engineer of Waterworks Engineering.
I'm Robert Moore. I'm on the commission.
Hadley.
Mike Whimpey. I work with Casey Shaw. Work at Central Utah Water Conservancy District and also a resident here in
I'm Jenny Calderon. I'm an engineer with Waterworks Engineers.
Chris Tschirki, Public Works Director.
Giles Demke, wastewater section manager.
John Motta with Waterworks Engineers.
I'm Reed Price. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director.
Water section. Hadley, Public Services Division Manager for Tony Steggell, street section manager. Rick Sabey, stormwater section manager. Morley. Tobler, I work for the Utah Army
That's on the
On the committee.
All right. Do you have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from last time? So second? Anybody, everyone in favor of that? Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Okay, let's go ahead and, water reclamation capital facilities.
Would you like to start that or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, please go ahead. Giles Demke will be presenting on the water reclamation facilities plan. By way of information, I'll give you a little background. We've done an extensive master plan analysis for water reclamation for its collection side, but not for its treatment side. Unlike most cities in the state, we have a treatment facility. And so our master plan that we did in 2016 and then we renewed in 2021 did not include an extensive capital facilities plan. That's what we're here to speak to today. And so all of our capital facilities plan, including all of the projects and the financial model that went to support that capital facilities plan, did not include this. And so we have not yet reached out to anybody regarding helping us perform a financial model on how to pay for this, assuming it is supported and sustained by the city council. We will be taking this to the city council tonight for their first review. It is our first meeting with them. So we wanted you to see this and then to have a discussion regarding how to move forward with it. So I'll turn the time over to Giles Demke, who is our water reclamation section manager, and he'll make some introductions and go with it.
So thank you. The entire plan, Reed has a link to that. It's about 270 pages long. So it has all of the supporting documents, everything that went into developing this plan. We contracted with Waterworks engineers to develop this plan. We've been working on it for about 2 years, a little bit. So it's finally finished. We turned it into the state of Utah 2 weeks ago as part of a clean water needs survey, which the state is required to do. So the document's been sent to them with the needs for Orem. With that, I'm going to introduce the team that helped work on this. The first one is John Motta. Next one, Wayne, and then Jenny did the bulk of the work on this. So thank you. With that, I'm going to let John present this. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask. We'll get to the end and have a discussion about it.
So we're just gonna add a little bit.
If you hit that button right there, it'll advance it. Top one. There you go.
So the agenda, it's long, but don't worry, we'll get to it quickly. There was some numbers we'd like to share with you. If we're too much into the detail, just let me know and we can skip some of them. Want to highlight on what's kind of deficient at the plant from a building code standards. The plant is an older plant, so there's some new codes that went into effect after the plant was constructed over the years. We'll touch on that a little bit. And then the new regulation that everybody's aware of with the phosphorus and the potential upcoming nitrogen. So let's dive into this. You drive by the plant. It's a good looking plant. It's very well maintained. You can't tell that the plant is from 1957. But over the years, the city did a good job kind of doing some upgrade. And I don't know if it's coincidental or not, almost every 27, 26 years, there was a major project, major upgrade. They've added processes or they converted some processes, as you can see from 57 to 84 to 2010. The plant, the city current population is 111,000. The build-out population is 129. The plant does have, with the current regulations and the current capacity that the plant has, it can serve the build-out capacity with exception to some mechanical systems that needs to be upgraded.
Can I mention, the 111 might seem like a high number to you. That's not the population of Orem, that's our service population for the plant. So we service 100% of Linden City, which is around 10,000 or 11,000 people, and then a small number of citizens actually in Vineyard. So it's more than just Orem City.
That's a good verification. So the liquid stream process, the plant has a liquid stream and a solid stream. That's kind of how we looked at it. You can see what's kind of outlined in red out the liquid stream facilities. Oops, sorry.
That one? This one?
That one. So primaries, and then you go to headworks, from the headworks down to the biological process, activated sludge, nutrient removal, and then from there you go to the UV system. There's also a plant project for filtration, essentially to kind of take the plant from a wastewater treatment plant to a water reclamation plant, and also do some phosphorus removal in the system. This has been expanded over the years. Some of it is dating back to 1957. Some of it as recent as the 2010 project. Go ahead, Giles. Oh, sorry. Solids treatment. The plant actually has a two-step anaerobic digestion. Before that you have a thickening process, the DAF. That's kind of a little bit one of these processes that needs to be revisited. You use dewatering belt press technology for dewatering. And then you still have sludge holding beds down here. There are a couple of these that don't have any lining. So that's kind of the solids on a big level. One note to mention is they were intended to do Class A biosolids. However, there's not enough redundancy to reliably do Class A biosolids. Class B is doable, but again, this system usually is a very intense mechanical system. These are, if you go to any plant, this is where you need most of the attention and most of the upgrades over the years.
John, can you explain the difference between Class A and Class B? And
yes. Give me one slide and
Okay.
we'll get there.
Okay.
So this is the subject talks of. So again, what we tend to forget when we do facility planning, we look at liquid, we look at solids, but those don't function if you don't have some of the support facilities. And those support facilities, from a planning perspective, cost you money. For example, the blowers for the aeration, for the activated sludge process, you can argue that should be part of the activated sludge, but it's its own facility. Usually those things run between $10 to $15 million on a plant of this size. When you build the building and you buy the equipment and you kind of equip them. Odor control facilities, those are critical to stay as a good neighbor in the community. Noise mitigation, the plant water system is also a considerable system that needs to be upgraded and maintained over the years to support all the other facilities. Most of the equipment has flush water and seal water, so you got to maintain the system. And then the two big ones are the electrical and the control systems. If you have a control system that was installed 10 years ago, 15 years ago, guess what? It's outdated. It's the same thing as your iPhone and your TVs. It's old technology. You can't find the replacement parts, so you have to always update them. And then there are some maintenance facilities. It's a big plant. Like, the operations staff has been doing a great job maintaining it, but you need a place to maintain them. And some of these facilities that if you built them 50 years ago, they don't meet your current code, and then that becomes a safety issue for the staff. And then, of course, the site, you got to maintain a clean site, paving and access to all the units. So these are all kind of facilities that would require maintenance and planning. To get into the process, we look at the treatment plant from two main aspects: hydraulics and solids capacity. So the flows are mostly the hydraulic capacity, and then you look at different scenarios. You have the diurnal curve. That's kind of you starting with a peak hour. You got to take the flow, and whether it's coming low or high, or whether it's raining or not raining, you got to be able to keep the water within the basins and within the channels. The annual average day condition is actually used mostly for budgeting. You kind of plan for your chemicals, your electric use over the year on an annual basis. It's the amount of water that the plant receives divided by 365 days a year. The average day max month is your maximum month of the year. It doesn't have to be a calendar month. It's kind of the 30-day rolling that you kind of take that. And this affects your biological process. Your peak flow sometimes is critical for some plants. They have equalization. In your case, you don't. So really the peak hour is what controls your hydraulics. And then the minimum flow condition, you want to look at that in case you want to avoid settling in the channels or some, turn down on some pumps and blowers. So that's kind of the different aspect you got to look at when you're thinking
Will you
hydraulics.
back up one?
Sorry.
I got it. This one, right there. So you'll notice there's a box there in red. There's two numbers. 2010, we did a major upgrade to the facility and had some design numbers that gave us a peak hour flow of 21.6 million gallons a day. We're bumping up against that number right now, running at 8.9 MGD as our average flow. We have an issue there. When we ran the models on this, our peak hour flow really should be 31.7 MGD. The facility right now can't handle that kind of a flow. So as we start to increase up to our design capacity of 13.5 million gallons a day, that peak hour flow is going to exceed what the facility can push through it. So we're going to have to look at that and make adjustments to get up into that 31 MGD. So
What kind of adjustments did you make?
bigger channels, more channels. Right now, our limiting factor of getting water through the facility is the UV facility. There are two channels. We cannot push the water through it. It will overtop the channels, and it shuts down the system. So it would need a third channel in order to get the water through it.
And to expand on that, the way we did it is we took the current peak hour divided by the average, and we applied it to the 13 future. So would that change? Would that change in the future? Possibly, if you better filtration controls and those things. But for now, this is a good way to plan this. As far as concentrations, BOD, TSS, and now we get an ammonia. The plant has an ammonia limit. Phosphorus becoming an issue, as you all know, and then potentially nitrogen, TIN in the future. So we looked at all the concentrations. The good thing is the 2010 project planned for 350 milligram per liter BOD and TSS. We're seeing lower than that currently under the current conditions. That's good if you're not doing denitrification or having lower BOD. If you're going to have to do denitrification in the future, you need higher carbon to be able to sustain the process without supplementing carbon. So we looked at it from both aspects, from the low BOD and the high BOD, and then from the nitrogen aspect. And again, these are numbers that should be watched continuously, because as the community age and mature, and you have different development, different kind of residential, you get apartments versus single family dwelling units. These numbers will vary, and if you get better infiltration and flow controls, the strength would go up, but the flow would go down. So you gotta watch these numbers. But I haven't seen it much higher than 350 on domestic plants. That's a good high number to plan for. This is essentially what we use to design the expensive part, the high dollar facilities, the activated sludge process and the digesters. It's the loading that matters. It's not the flow by itself or the concentration. It's the combination of both. It's the loading numbers. The good news is, as you can see, that what's planned for at the site is a good number. It's about 40,000, 39,000 pounds per day. You have plenty of basins in the ground to be able to take the future capacity. What you're lacking is some of the mechanical system upgrades and to kind of meet the new regulations. That's kind of in a nutshell what's going on with this slide. That's a very important. These are very important numbers for us to be able to plan or design facilities. And for activated sludge process, really we focus on the max month condition, the average day max month, 30-day, heavy loading that you're going to get in a year, not the week or the day or the hour. It's the sustained 30-day. This is a summary of what matters to which facility at the plant. So screening, for example, you need to focus on peak hour and the minimum flow. You don't want settling, but you don't want to, overflow over the channels or overwhelm your screens. Giles' point, if the peak hour flow is 31 MGD, we gotta revisit that facility. Grit removal, same thing. Primaries, it's mostly the loading, but also the peak hour affects the weir loading, so you gotta pay attention to that. Oxidation ditches and bioreactor, like we mentioned, established day maximum condition. Clarifier can be both. Most of the time, it's the solid loading that's bed controlled, but you also have to check the hydraulics, especially during peak hour condition. Like Giles mentioned, the UV channels, those are peak hour driven. If you don't have enough to take the 31 MGD, you have to deal with it. Thickening, it's a loading condition, and the digesters also is a loading condition. So that's in a nutshell what we look at, and there's various pumps on the pumping systems. For example, the primary effluent pump station, that's a hydraulic condition that we have to account for. So this is from what's coming into the plant. Now, what does the plant have to meet from a regulatory standpoint? You have the liquid stream. The plant already is operating under BOD, TSS, and ammonia limit. And then there's the phosphorus limit that's coming up in 2025. You know, the date's sliding a little bit, but you still have to meet that date by 2025. There's potentially in the future a TIN number less than 10 million per liter that you have to comply with. And then there are other things that's going to happen. I mean, everybody's talking about, contaminant of concerns, NBMA, other things, you name it. We can have a long list that you get a plan for. The site has enough capacity to deal with that, but depending on what you have to deal with in the future. Solids treatment, there are the Class A and Class B classes that you can treat for, mostly for pathogen and reduction and vector attraction. And to Chris's point, so the nice thing about Class A, once you produce Class A, you need less documentation, you have less restrictions on where you can dispose of the sludge. It costs you more money because you need more digesters and you need to kind of hold it longer at a higher temperature. So it costs you more money to operate. But you don't have the potential legal issues down, over the years. The future constraint with sludge disposal, as everybody knows, there is very big concern that land application may not be allowed in the future. Is that going to happen or not? We don't know. There's potentially some new contaminants that are coming up that may also limit this, PFOA and other things. So that's something that you need to keep in mind in case you need to do additional treatment for the sludge in order to avoid land application.
I just wanted to comment on that. When we did our plant expansion in 2010, one of the main upgrades that we did was we built this facility so it could do Class A biosolids. And now we're looking at making this so we can do it more reliably and consistently. The Class A, what that allowed us to do, even Class B, is we could land apply the Class B on fields instead of taking that biosolid and then disposing it at a dump site, a facility. And that annually, that costs us over $200,000, $250,000 a year. Since that time, we have not put any of that biosolid material in, for example, at, where have we taken it in the past? ECDC in the past, but today, where would we take it? Out to Tooele?
It goes out on that side of the lake. I can't remember the name of the landfill because we don't use it.
Yeah, right. So we haven't used it for many years. And we'd have to truck it out there. We'd have to haul it out there. There's a cost for that. There's some safety and risk issues associated with that as well. So when we take this to a farmer's field, we actually go out there and run an analysis on the soil conditions to see what they're deficient in for nitrogen, phosphorus, and so forth. This is regulated through the EPA, but more directly in the state of Utah through the Department of Environmental Quality and the Division of Water Quality. And so they manage both of these processes, the solids and then the liquid streams here and the quality of the product that we produce. And so we're at their mercy in terms of these regulations. We lobby with them and with others and try to keep them at bay, so to speak, because if they drive it down too low, the cost can go up dramatically. The cost statewide right now for meeting some of these standards, for example, for Provo City, they're going to have to spend around $150 million. Is that about right? To meet these standards. And then Salt Lake City, I think, was upwards of how much?
Salt Lake City's pushing almost $800 million
$800 million.
to redo their plant. Central Valley is pushing upwards of $400 million to upgrade their plant.
So what we're talking about here is very pricey. It has an extreme impact on us, but it's all in the name of environmental quality. And so we are at the mercy of the state and the regulatory authorities that govern us.
So can I ask, are we currently meeting the phosphorus limits?
Right now, the facility has an interim limit of 2.5 milligrams per liter. We are meeting that. It's an annual average. For 2022, we came in at 2.1 milligrams per liter for our annual average. The issue that we are having is that we're meeting that by using chemical addition. We're adding alum into the system to get rid of the phosphorus.
So what are you going to do with the plan then to meet them?
Couple of different things. First thing we're going to do is upgrade and tune in the biological phosphorus removal that the facility is designed to do. There's a couple of deficiencies that we need to correct. Once we get that under control, all of this phosphorus drops into a solid form in our oxidation ditches for biological phosphorus removal. The bad thing is with anaerobic digesters, once it hits the digesters in an anaerobic condition, all that phosphorus releases back into the water column. So now it's back into our water. We just did some benchtop testing for a new process. It's called ELOVAC. Provo is running this, and it will pull the phosphorus out of that water stream and put it back into a solid form where it will be sequestered and will go out with the biosolids. That's step one. Step two, the new reuse project that you're all aware of, it is being constructed now because we got lots of great grants because of Reed and Chris. So that one is designed to not only do water reuse for irrigation, and you're all aware during irrigation season, it's April to October. After that, reuse systems typically shut down and they mothball them because we can't use the water in the cold weather. This facility was designed to run 365 days a year. When we're not doing reuse water, we'll switch it over and use it for phosphorus removal. We have a couple of cells up front of the filters where we add alum in at a much lower dose rate than we are right now. And it will grab that phosphorus, turn it to a solid, and it comes out on the filters. The filters will filter it out. Those filters can take it below 1. Once that's done, we put in piping that we can reblend this water back into our effluent stream, send it back out to the lake. So we're doing a belt and suspenders approach on this. So we can make sure that we meet those numbers. And if the state decides to get greedy and go lower, the reuse facility is designed to be upgraded by just putting more cassettes into the existing filter tanks, where we can run the entire plant flow through those filters and filter the entire plant flow. Right now it's designed to filter about 7.5 MGD. At build out, it can take 15.
You're talking about high numbers, other organizations,
Mhm.
government agencies. What about us? What numbers are we looking at?
We'll get there.
I figured you were getting to that.
All right. Yeah.
You want me to go
He's
to the
like,
last-
cut to the chase.
Can you get the last slide? There's a reason why I didn't give you a hard copy, because I know what normally executives do. Go to the back page and then send us back home, right? Yeah. So the other aspect you looked at is, like we mentioned before, other codes. This plant has been kind of expanding since 1957. There are some new codes, seismic codes, NFPA 820 codes. Where do we meet them? Where do we don't meet them? So, and how do you apply them? You don't want to just wholesale it and come back and say, oh, this plant doesn't meet the current seismic code. Let's just take the whole thing out and put a new one in. So we didn't want to do that. So that's where we kind of went in and looked at codes. And there's some other codes like that, all the latest plumbing codes and electrical codes, these things. But really, these are the two main ones. The other things that you look at is the plant has a safe access to equipment. Does it provide safe, work environment? The reliability of the equipment and the facilities, the redundancy. So there's a couple of facilities that didn't have enough redundancy that are critical for you. For example, the UV system. You've got to be able to take a channel out of service while you're still managing the plant flow. You don't have to do it during a peak hour event, but you have to have enough reliability in the UV system. It's a major disinfection step in the process. And a couple of other, like the primary effluent pump station and a couple other facilities that don't have enough redundancy in it.
So before you jump on that last one, that firm capacity, that's actually a state requirement that says I need to be able to take my largest process unit out of service and still meet all of the permit requirements.
Well, don't hate me for that one. There's some interpretation here. Like if you have 3 pumps, you got to be able to take the largest pump out of service and be able to run the system without the largest pump. Same thing for blowers. Where there's some forgiveness, for example, on aeration basins. Very few agencies would tell you, oh, if you take the largest aeration basin out of service, you got to have another one to replace it with. Unless you're like very critical operation, you don't have to do that. You can play the timing, or you can say, look, I don't need to take a basin out of service. I can fix mixers. I can fix, the aeration system without taking the basin out of service. But you have to make sure that you can do these things. You can't make that claim and don't give the operation staff the tools and the procedures to be able to do that. So again, the other thing we looked at is, well, how big is the plant? Really, from an asset perspective, the plant staff and the plant management were good at giving us a list of about 900 assets, about 880 or something assets. And when we went through them and looked at the expected useful life, if you look at that spreadsheet, we had a code where essentially if it's beyond its expected useful life, it turns red. We'll have the spreadsheet turn red. So like the good thing is they were still using them. So they're doing a great job maintaining them, but you're beyond most of the expected useful life of some of the facilities. The big one is the electrical and the controls. So those are a little bit outdated. And then they're all looked in a good condition, but some of them didn't. So because of corrosion, you have a lot of panels that are sitting in areas that are corrosive. That the material wasn't set for that area, so you see a lot of signs of corrosion in some of the specific plants, especially on the primaries and the solids. So the way we looked at these assets, we looked at condition, we look at age, and we look at criticality. If it's a piece of equipment that if it fails, it's going to cause you to violate or to cause a safety issue, that's a high criticality piece of equipment. If it's something that would have just caused a nuisance or just give you an alarm, you can go and fix it the next day, then that has a lower priority. So what we found is, as expected, a lot of the facilities did not meet the FBA 820 code, especially on the primaries and the biosolid and the solid side. And the majority of the control systems use updated technology. They can even find parts to replace some of these devices. But to put it kind of on a higher level, we thought, well, okay, if this is a 15 MGD plant that you're trying to construct today, you're doing primaries, nutrient removal, biosolids treatment, two-step digestion, anaerobic digestion, you have UV disinfection, develop the entire site. I'm thinking these days it's $400 million. We can argue whether it's 350 or 420 or whatever, but you're in that range. You're not going to build a similar facility for less this money. And you can think of it as half of this investment is already aged, is already outdated. So that's kind of keep that in mind. And we're not trying to get to that number, but that's one kind of good comparison. So when we look at all the things we have to deal with, of course, budget and money is a big concern for everybody. So how do you balance between risk and budgeting? Well, the first thing you do is phasing, and you set priorities, right? So we came up with, at least we're proposing 4 phases. Phases 1, 2, and 3 are driven by the condition and the current regulations. Phase 4 is a future step that you may implement or you may not, depending on whether the nitrogen rules are implemented in the state. So to get into the numbers and to the what do we do now to fix phosphorus, and to what Giles mentioned, there's the DNR improvements, the side stream TP removal. That's part of the phase 1. I think this is already working on that. Giles, you can now have the plan for it and the instruments. But these are the high critical facilities, the one that could cause safety problems. You don't have enough redundancy to meet the current permit, and you gotta improve the phosphorus issue by 2025. So those are the high critical elements. These are also have some criticality to them, not as much as the first one, the headworks because of the price tag. We had it here initially, then we moved it here. We said we could live with the headworks, kind of try to work through it until we build the headworks building, or we build the headworks building. And then these are less critical items in phase 3. We can go into details if you'd like to, but I know you're itching to see the numbers. And again, we assigned the 1 to 5 years. It's a bit flexible, but that's kind of the breakdown over the years. So if you compare it, really the $37 million, you may never have to do that if the nitrogen rules don't go in effect. So this is what you're looking at as far as phasing and cost.
It's important to note the numbers we gave you too regarding Provo and Central Valley and Salt Lake. Their numbers are for just to address phosphorus and nitrogen limits that are coming. Ours are broader. They include seismic and fire code issues. So building and other issues above and beyond those, I believe. Is that fair to say?
So I just want to clarify. So these numbers, so the basins that you were constructed prior to the current seismic code, they don't meet the current seismic code. We didn't do an in-depth evaluation, but most likely everything we looked at in Provo and Salt Lake in the past, you don't meet that. So we don't have that in here. But we didn't feel the need that you have to go in and build new basins just to meet the seismic code. If you have multiple basins, if you end up getting hit with a big seismic event and it takes all of them out, then everybody has much bigger problems in the world than just the wastewater treatment plant. But if you have a minor effect that could affect one basin, you have multiple basins for each process unit that you can react to and adjust. The seismic is mostly for old occupied buildings that could cause, safety problems or safety hazards to your staff.
Most of our buildings, I think, are not reinforced concrete. They're cinder block.
Right.
So.
Okay, bottom line. I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but what's the main thing that you're concerned about? If you had to really dial it down to 1 or 2 issues, what is it that has all the staff here is concerned as well? And thanks for coming, staff. What is it that's really a big concern, biggest concern of all these things?
From me or Giles?
Anybody who wants to answer the question. You probably have the same concern. Very similar.
Okay.
If I were to prioritize,
Yeah.
the first thing is going to be the phosphorus or the improvements to make sure that we meet the phosphorus. The second one is going to be hydraulics at the UV. The third one is going to be the electrical and the control systems.
And all that's in phase 1.
Yes, and if you'll notice, if you look at that, you've got phase 1 and phase 3. You'll see SCADA integration in both.
All of them.
There's a reason for that. This is a 20-year plan. SCADA systems, electrical systems have 5, 10, 15-year lifespan. That's it. So it's an ongoing process that we have to stay on top of. I'll give you an example. I've had a failure. It happened in May of last year. I lost a PLC. We keep spare parts. We put spare parts in. Another card in that rack failed. I ordered the card in May. It's still on order. I can't get it. It's outdated. They're not making it. They're only making the new ones right now. So there's issues. We have MCC's motor control centers. That's our electrical system. That's what moves the power around the facility. In environments they're not supposed to be in. It's in a basement next to pumps. If a pump leaks, it's going to flood that MCC and I will lose that MCC lineup. If we lose the MCC lineup, we can't move water. So those are the things that keep me up at night.
So the phasing, the first phase is, what's the time frame on that?
We have
It's
5 years.
5 years?
You want 5 years?
Drop into that last slide.
Is that for each phase? So it's 5 years?
Yes. Again, this is, there's no really way.
Keep going. It's the one with the timelines on it. One more. That one.
Oh,
That one shows our timelines. So we're starting in fiscal year 23. We go out 5 years for phase one. The next phase is phase two, and then phase three. Phase four may or may not happen. Again, a lot depends on how the state comes back with new limits, if they do come back. It will depend on how city council redoes zoning maps. This is all based upon the current zoning that's in place right now. If we change zoning in areas, well, flows and loads can go up. So this is the snapshot right now. If everything holds true, the facility is designed to take us out to 2060. If it changes the zonings, it may not.
You know, and as a consultant, I shouldn't say that, but it's unfortunately, it's a fact of life. These are treatment plants that are heavy in mechanical systems and electrical controls. Even if you don't do phase three, after 25 years, you will have to do some improvements that would cost you probably $20 million. This is the nature of these treatment plants. And, you know, they last forever, but you got to maintain them and you got to upgrade. So.
But the phases intended to the improvements being made as part of each phase occurring in a 1 or 2 year period, or kind of continuously throughout the 5 years? And would it make sense with the way those phases with no gaps between them? Are you basically under construction continuously for the entire duration of this plant? And does it make, I guess my point is, does it make sense is there economies of scale that can be achieved by combining phases and doing it all at once as opposed to?
There absolutely is. You've all seen what has happened in the market the past 2 years. The more you stretch this out, the more expensive it gets. The point needs to be made that all of these dollars that you're seeing up there are in 2022 dollars. I don't know what the inflation rate is going to be over the next 5, 10, 15 years. It's always less expensive to a municipality to do everything up front if you have the cash to do it. Most municipalities don't have that kind of a cash flow. So we stage it out and do the best we can. Will there be some gaps in this? Absolutely. Can we group things together so we're doing 3 projects all at once? Yes.
From an operation standpoint, it's a challenge to have projects going on.
Oh, yes.
All the time.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. I agree with you.
But at the same time, you can't shut down the facility for a year, get everything over with.
No, we can't shut the facility down for an hour. Well, that's not true. We are coming in 2 weeks to do cleaning. We come in at 3 a.m. because we have to shut flow down because of the flow never stops. So we have to schedule these things. Construction's the same way. We schedule and we plan so that we can take process units out and still meet our permits.
So what is the financial plan?
That's coming.
One thing to understand is we don't know what's going to break. We don't know which asset's going to go out first. Many of them are over their expected useful life. They're being maintained very well. Giles and his people are doing a great job out there. We don't know what's going to break next. So there may be some projects that we've identified for phase 2 that will come into phase 1, and some of phase 1 may get pushed into phase 2 because of finances and whatnot.
But that's life anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's exactly the point.
And to Wayne's comment, last week, I had 3 major pieces of electric equipment fail. We're lucky. We had one on the shelf, so we've used our spare. I don't know that I can get another one because of the age of it, so we're going to be looking at replacing that. Again, the staff at the facility has done a great job of keeping this thing running in a good condition. We've got our money out of it. It's just like your car. You buy a brand new car, you pay a lot of money for it. You do the maintenance. How many years do you keep it? Some people only keep it 3 years. Some people like me, I keep it 20. But as it ages, it costs more money to maintain that car. This treatment plant's exactly the same way.
We don't want this to be a 1957 classic though, either, you know? Plastic plates on this. There are some of those, but it takes a lot of money to maintain those.
There's a lot of money.
So to put things into perspective, if we were to say, hey, city council, we need $160 million today to do it all at once. Okay, that's $530 per residential connection a month. Right. So are we gonna make that recommendation? We are not. That's why we're breaking it up into manageable pieces as best we can. And it's not going to be a pay-as-you-go option either. It will need to require bonding. With bonding, we can stretch it out over an extended period of time, perhaps 20 years for each bond for each phase. I don't see it happening any other way being able to accomplish this, get this done. We have not met with the financial advisor or planner on this yet, but we will be, and that's our goal over the next little while here. This will not be incorporated in terms of a new rate increases, probably for another year, I'm guessing. But the plan needs to be in place when it needs to be known, and the state needs to know that we have this plan in place as well. That's one of the main reasons why we're doing this capital facilities plan. We need to know where we are. We're taking a snapshot in time on our health of our system, and we're projecting it moving forward. So it's as if we're going to a doctor right now and a visit, and they're saying, well, you should probably change your diet a little bit here or there, or come in and might need to have some surgery and tweak this or whatever. And so we're leaving the doctor's office now with a laundry list of things we got to do. We'll be presenting this tonight to the city council. I don't know that, 160, I got to admit, when I first heard the number 160 million, my jaw dropped and I went to panic mode. But I do know relatively what's happening in other facilities throughout the state, and we're not alone. And it's not on, we can manage without meeting these permit limits without having to go to this expense. But the bottom line is this is in the name of the health and safety of the environment. It's driven by the US EPA and our division or Department of Water Quality and Environmental Quality of the state of Utah. And our facilities some of them are still in place from 1957. They're 65 years old. And they're in a pretty good state of our condition, but as mentioned, there are some that have been identified that are prioritized that need to be replaced or repaired more immediately than others. So,
How amenable is your city council one? They're pretty conservative city council.
yeah, so 2016, the plan was to do a pay-as-you-go plan. And from a budget perspective, when you're looking at buying a car as an individual, you could probably do it. Most people still borrow money to buy a car, but you could probably save up and buy a used car, even a brand new car. If you could save up $25,000, that's pretty impressive. Not everybody can do that. But that was the direction that was given back in 2016. We learned
Some of them are new for water, CIP, wastewater collection system, CIP, and stormwater. Those were the three master plans that we did back in the day.
Okay. So over the last 5 years since 16, we were saving money. We had millions of dollars in the accounts that weren't being spent. We were being asked, well, why aren't we spending this? Well, we're saving up to build these projects because this is a pay-as-you-go plan and the model. And it was soon realized that, we need to spend this money and we need to bond. We need to spread it out across multiple generations because it's not fair to put all of the burden on this generation today for a product that's going to be here 75 years from now. But the people that are paying for it will be gone in 5 years or 10 years or whatever. So the financial model shifted at the request of the city council in 2021 to do so. Great question. And we've gone back and forth on it. But that's the direction we have today. And all of our plans have adjusted accordingly so that they can be built. We can build them up now sooner than later as well because we're going to be borrowing money. In 2021, we borrowed, it was around $30 million for water, sewer, and stormwater projects.
We have another pandemic in the next 5 years. The federal government makes a bunch of money available.
Yeah. I've always told my kids there aren't money trees, but we've learned that there are actually money orchards out there. We've received 4 or 5 grants totaling $13.6 million from the federal and state through ARPA dollars and through federal earmarks. That for water reuse alone. We haven't really spoken too much about that today in any level of detail. But back a year ago, when we advertised this project for water reuse, our estimates were around $9 million. The bids came in, the low bid came in about 18.4 million. And then the high bid was about 21 million. And we all choked and we couldn't believe it. And so we went back, we had to hit the pause button. We went back to the state, to the Division of Water Quality. We went to Utah County. We went to the federals through our federal lobbyist, and we were able to get a 1 million, a 2.6 million, a 7 million, and what I'm missing another number here, but it totaled up to $13.6 million in grants that essentially have paid for all of the inflation to do the project. So on one hand, we're very grateful. On the other hand, I'm a little bit scared for the economy and for what's happening right now, the inflationary forces that are out there. Any other questions or comments or council that you might have for us before we take this to the city council tonight?
I'm assuming that as time goes on, you're planning on making adjustments to this plan now.
Absolutely.
It's a 20-year plan. I work in an industry where we make a 3-year plan and assume on an annual basis it's going to be completely rewritten. And
we do the same thing with master planning for utilities. So our utility plan, our model right now is to do them about every 5 years and then retool and come back and evaluate. We can see what we were able to accomplish, what still needs to happen. And then but the plan for that 5-year, for that master plan, it's a 20-year plan, but every 5 years it gets updated.
Okay.
And then we need to rethink and retool on the financial side of it as well. And so about every 5 years, we'll be coming back to the council to adopt a new master plan for each of our utilities. So it's ongoing effort. With our last master planning process, it was recommended, and we did adopt the concept of doing impact fees. Impact fees help to offset the costs for the current residents, and they help pay for the impact to the utility of those that are coming new into the system or increasing the demand on the system. And they pay for that proportionally as they come in. And so we've tried to hit this from many different angles, not just from the current base that we have, but those that are causing new growth and expansion. To go from 111 to 130,000 for population, their impacts will be covered by them to a large degree.
So what is your financial plan? How much are you planning on being able to pay as you go, and the other, how much are you gonna have to bond?
Reed, can you answer that?
We will be working with our financial advisor to determine what the best direction is. It's some direction from the city council, hopefully at the meeting today or in future meetings where they will say, yes, we want to bond, we need to bond, or we want to pay as you go. Have that discussion with them as to the pros and cons of whatever direction they're on. The message that we're trying to send by presenting this capital facilities plan to them is we need to invest now, sooner than later, and get a commitment from them to be able to pay for the improvements that are needed for the reasons that have been stated. Will the plan change? Yes, but with a commitment to fund it, we'll be able to fund however it changes in the next 5 years. We will likely have to pivot, but this is the snapshot of what we need right now. We need to help them understand the need for us to act now and to get a commitment from them to fund this. How that's to be funded, that's the next step.
Yes, bonding rates are up, so it's
doesn't help.
Yeah, it's not a great time to.
Yeah, there,
Well, so.
Yes. Giles mentioned earlier that the state needed this plan to be turned in by the end of the year. We've been working on it for a couple of years. It's done. It's a clean water survey. What they do is they take every community says this is what we're going to need in the near future and in the distant future. They take those numbers and say, okay, Utah needs $8 billion in the next 30 years for wastewater and infrastructure, whatever the number is. I don't know what it is. And then the federal government, the state money is made available, not as grants, but for low interest loans. And we will hopefully be able to qualify for portions of those funds. They're usually lower interest than what you can find on the market, but those are options that we will be able to.
Are we looking for a motion to recommend this plan from the commission?
That'd be wonderful if you'd like to do that.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve this plan and move it forward to the city council? So I would move to recommend to the city council that they adopt the water reclamation capital facilities plan as presented today. Do you have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that endorsement. You're all welcome to come today. If we understand you have busy schedules, but we do have our meeting with the city council. It starts at 4 o'clock.
4:30.
4:30. Thank you. If you're there at 4 though, you won't be late.
Before you won't be late, exactly.
4:30. It's in a work session, and then we'll be coming back to them at a future time with a financial plan after we consult with probably Lewis Young Robertson Birmingham is who we've used in the past for our most recent master plans. They're our financial advisor for the city as well. If not them, it'll be somebody like Zion's Public Finance or another comparable financial firm. So, do we have any other updates? Reed from Water Resources.
You've noticed it's been pretty wet recently.
No.
Very helpful. We're optimistic about the water supplies. It's nice from a street perspective to have it wet and not frozen.
But a compliment to the streets department. The roads have been taken care of very well. Very well.
It is certainly a lot easier when it comes down and flows down the drain and sits there and wait for it to come out. So, we like the frozen stuff up in the mountains and wet stuff in the valleys.
Cody and Rick, can you give us an update on how many times you've come out the last couple months? We've had a lot of snow actually.
My records show that we have activated our teams 20 times. That's quite a bit more than we had the last few years.
That's all doing normal working hours then, right?
We've used over.
No, Cody, no.
Sorry.
We plan on the snowstorms to begin at 8 a.m.
They don't always comply.
We've been able to keep quite a bit of salt in the building, but we have to use 1,000 tons of salt, which is basically our estimated budget for every year. Approximately 3,000 tons. So we're in good shape right now. I'd say filling it back up, but if this continues,
Yeah. That's the kind of request I'm glad to hear, because that means we're getting some snow, and we need it. We need it for the next season. Our soil moisture content in the mountains, it's like around 80%. I think at Trial Lake. Quinn, did you notice that? Yeah. Yeah. So 100% average. We're at about 160 maybe percent of average in our watershed, and our soil moisture conditions is really high, meaning that when the snow starts to melt, it's not going to just get sucked up like a sponge. And where you have like 10% soil moisture, it's going to suck it up. Right now, it's going to run off, and it's going to get into our reservoirs, flow down the rivers, so then we'll be able to fill up our reservoirs.
Last time we met, I presented the water conservation plan, and it was apparent that the community has responded to the different conditions. In fact, the water per capita use had dropped so much it was at what we wanted to be at in 2030 already. Will we maintain that? Hopefully. There's a chance that everyone sees all that snow and reverts back to the non-conservation mindset. So that we hopefully, with these good reports that we have about lots of rain, let's not tell everyone the drought's over or anything like that. Let's hopefully everyone understands that we need to continue to be wise in our water use so that our water supplies can be.
At the end of our meeting in November as well, there were some questions regarding landscaping, code and requirements, and watering and water conservation and so forth. We've been in touch with Central Utah, where Mike works, with Rick Malloy and Savannah Peterson, who head up their water conservation program. And they have some significant incentives that they're going to be offering this year. They're working with us right now on evaluating our current landscaping ordinances and water conservation ordinances that we have in place to see if they conform with their plan to enable citizens or residents here in Orem to be able to get rebates. If, for example, you've heard the term flip your strip, which means if you have a landscape strip that might be 6 feet wide or 8 feet wide, what we'd like to do is encourage people to not put in any sod or any grass there, because that's a really inefficient way to water, and you see a lot of water going down the gutters and so forth. We would like to encourage drip systems in those landscaped areas and those strips. Also, if somebody has a front yard they'd like to flip and take out all of their grass material and put in some not rock or xeriscaping necessarily, but other types of plants and so forth that are more conducive to this environment in this region that we live in, that don't use as much water, then there can be some rebate and some incentive to those people that would like to make some significant changes. 2 years ago or last year, I can't remember, there was a $5 million note associated with a program to remove grass and in the form of rebates. And now that's going down to the Conservancy districts, including Central Utah Water. Those dollars are made available to residents who would like to make some significant modifications to their landscaping to make them more conducive with our region and our water demands that we have here. I see this as not a first step, but this is a step moving forward where I think you're going to see increased efforts to do this moving forward into the future. I think at a future Public Works Advisory Commission meeting, I'd like to have maybe Savannah come down or Rick Malloy from Central Utah to explain some of the offerings that they're going to have. They're going to put this out there on March 1st to make these dollars available. They'll be, I don't know how they're going to manage it or minister it, so I'd like to hear more from them directly. But if you'd like, we can get them on an upcoming agenda here, before the irrigation season starts.
I think that'd be good.
Okay. I'll reach out to them and we'll do that. They might actually come to our council meeting coming up in January 24th, or maybe one of our meetings in February. So we're going to educate the citizens and the city council at that time through what programs they have to offer.
Good.
That's all the additional announcements we had.
All right, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Chris? So you mentioned water, and that's great. Very happy. What are you doing with flooding? We talk, the word. We're talking about that a lot right now.
You bet.
We're
Yeah.
having flooding right
Rick Sabey here is our stormwater manager. Maybe he can address that.
Orem's pretty unique in it's set up on an alluvial banana bench, so some of the deep type flooding that we have, that other communities struggle with, we don't struggle with so much. We do have some homes up on the northeast that may be more prone to that. Our challenge is more, the city is so flat that we can't get the water to run on all the streets. We don't have pipes on all the streets, so we have the ups and downs. So what we end up with is much more nuisance flooding than we actually have property damage type stuff. Now there's exceptions to that. We had that microburst 2 or 3 years ago that damaged a lot of homes. Those are the types of things that are pretty difficult to plan for us. What we're trying to do is just maintain the infrastructure we have out there. We rely on sumps a lot. We've got a lot of pipe infrastructure, like I said a minute ago. So it's all about maintenance. So that's what tries to keep these off.
Our master plan though does address some certain areas that have been identified to be more prone for some flooding as well. So we are moving forward and targeting some of those areas that have a higher propensity for flooding. So,
All right, next meeting, date for that?
okay. Let's have a look. February, I don't think anybody wants to come here on February 14th, do they? Maybe they do. Bring your spouse. February 21st is the third Tuesday. Does that work? February 21st?
Is that all right with everybody? Okay. All right, well, we thank you for the presentation. It's very good and appreciate all that's being done here on the public works sector. We have a motion to adjourn.
You need to approve the minutes from last meeting, or
We did.
did? Right, sorry, I missed that.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Be sure to grab some treats or a drink over here on your way.